feeling a bit like Alice? Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
Curiosity often leads to trouble.
You take the blue pill. The story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to. You take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. And I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
I'm awake. Are you? Let's go now to our new episode of The Unfiltered Rise with me, Heidi Love.
And welcome to another episode of The Unfiltered Rise. And today we have with us a very special guest. This is Isaac. Hi, Isaac. How are you doing?
I'm good, Heidi. Hello.
I'm so glad to introduce you. And we are actually family. And so I haven't seen Isaac in quite a while, but I'm excited that he would do this interview with me because he wrote a book and I would love to hear all about it. Would you like to share with us today?
Sure, I'll give a little summary. The book is called Devotion, Deception, Deliverance, Isaac's Story, written by Charlene Paul. It describes my youth growing up in the fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Describes my childhood, which many don't understand was very wonderful. I had a very good childhood.
Oh, good.
My dad, my mom's lived a very virtuous life. If you can see through the
right. So polygamy is what we're talking about. And you had how many moms did you have growing
I had
up?
3 moms growing up.
3 moms. And how many
Yeah.
children, like in the family unit, were there?
My mom was the second wife of the 3. She had 16 children of her own.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Go, mom. That is
Yes,
wow. I have 6 and I thought I was underwater over here. She's a trooper. You tell her.
Amazing.
Yes. And when you say fundamentalist, there's a lot of branches and you're from the Colorado City, is that right? Where you grew up or?
That's right.
Yes.
Rulon Jeffs and eventually Warren Jeffs. And that's when things just took a turn for the crazy.
Yes. And you're related actually to Warren Jeffs. How?
Yes. My dad is the brother of Warren Jeffs' mom.
Okay. So family, fairly close family. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. And so I know I actually have kind of done some research on the inner workings, and I've always heard that Rulon, when he was actually really good with people and fair and made sure things were ran well as far as what I've read. I mean, you would have definitely more perspective.
That's what I remember too. That's what I remember too. I loved him, had a lot of respect for him, considered him the prophet of God, and
right.
And all so much good.
Good.
I wish more people could have the childhood I had.
Well, that's actually wonderful to hear, because you hear these other stories a lot of times that are just where you step back and go, whoa. But now that I've done this podcast, I'll tell you, I've seen that with even mainstream Mormonism will come on and say crazy stuff that I'm like, that's not true. Like, no, that's not true. So that's why I wanted to have you on, because I'm like, there are so many, I think, untruths. People want sensationalism, they want
lies.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm unfiltered and I want to send out the truth. That's kind of what I do. So I was excited when you were willing to be an open book with me about that and share exactly like how how that works. So many people are curious because it's not done, everywhere. Where you're from it was, but in the grand scheme of things, we don't often see people with 16 kids and 3 wives. And well, I'm sure he had way more kids because there was other wives, right? So
that's right.
The first wife had how many kids?
Oh, I think
ish around
10 or 12. The third wife had 10 or 12.
So you came from a huge family. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Eventually, he got more wives.
okay.
At the peak, he had 12 wives, my
Oh
dad.
my goodness, that's a lot of running. Your poor dad. That is actually hard. Anybody
Oh,
that
so
would take on more than one woman, in my mind, is really brave. We're not
he's a
easy.
he's a
We're,
grand man. I was blessed to have a very good father.
oh,
Anybody and
good.
everybody who meets him can see it right off the bat.
Oh, oh,
He's a
that's
great,
good.
grand character.
And though you've separated from that growing up, that type of living for yourself, they didn't disown you like what often happens, right? You still are in touch with your family.
Now
So
I now
now
I
you
am.
are. Okay, so that's good because I mean, anything that destroys the family unit, and I don't care like which way, how, which, wherever, if a child estranges a parent or a parent estranges a child or however that goes, I just think it's really toxic. You know, we all want that connection unless there's some kind of abuse that you can't overcome or something like that. But that's not the case there. So um anyways, so you grew up and you were happy and then
Raised very well according to the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, the typical LDS scriptures, but in sincerity and in fundamental terms. In other words, nothing was changed, hence the polygamy.
right. That's what I
So
often tell people is that actually when I explain the Book of Mormon, people and I don't believe in Mormonism anymore at all, any way you cut it. But I do say this about the fundamentalists: they actually live it more than than anybody else. They don't
they
change
used
the
to.
words. Yeah,
They
they
used to
do.
until Warren Jeffs took over. That's
Right,
correct.
right. Yeah. I know it's going to go down a rabbit hole, which is why we're going to chat about that because I know it gets rough, and I think there might be some kind of mental break or something with him, but it's definitely different. I know from what it was under Rulon, you know.
That's
So
right.
I'd love to hear your perspective of that and what kind of happened as you grew up. And I mean, obviously, you get to some point where you're going to get married, or how did that come about for you?
Well, again, my dad raised us to be very virtuous and moral, to do unto others as we'd have done unto us, to tell the truth, all the sincere, virtuous principles of Christianity. And Rulon Jeffs taught those also to us.
Mm-hmm.
Later, I'm coming to understand a little more. There were some dark secrets with him and his family that I'm learning about, that
Right.
I have learned about. But Warren Jeffs, uh, I'm learning, apparently when he was very young, got into some serious immorality, and it was kind of shoved under the rug and
Oh, I
hidden.
didn't even know that. Yeah. I uh I
And,
didn't know that.
well, this is how I look at it, and people can take it for what they want. But the evil powers used Warren Jeffs, knowing of his immorality and that it was
Mm-hmm.
hidden and kept a secret, and thus in his mind he got away with it, and it was okay for him because he was more righteous or better for some reason because he got away with
Right.
it, and just put him in that position knowing full well he was going to destroy thousands and thousands of lives.
Mm-hmm.
So
He's
very
gonna have a
crafty.
lot on his shoulders when he's gonna have a lot to answer for. I know that
That's
because
right.
you cannot do what they've done. And honestly, like I don't know about the total inner workings, but I do know Rulon was really good about actually letting people choose more about who they wanted to marry, that the people were 18. I knew that was one of the things because I've read some books about it. He was way more diligent. Now, I'm not saying there isn't some people that ran away and maybe got married earlier. I mean, I did that and I wasn't polygamist. I was 17, but I was in love. So I'm sure that
Many,
happens sometimes. But
many different circumstances. But
yes.
Warren Jeffs, initially, again, in public, he was a saint.
Mm-hmm.
I had implicit confidence in him. I never saw him do one bad thing. I felt he would give his life for anybody, for righteousness, for good.
Right.
But then as he got more power, there's a saying that I think it's Lord Atkins says, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yes, that's actually one of my favorite sayings. I say that all the time. I think that's absolutely true. For
It
sure.
100% is. And he got absolute power. And because of the flaws and the immorality in his character that he felt above the law in,
Right.
began
Because he
introducing
was the law, right? Yeah. When you I mean, because before for an early age, don't they know who's going to kind of, I know they don't absolutely know who's going to be the prophet, but they kind of know who's going to kind of come up, right? Like next in line type thing. I mean,
not really, not from an
okay.
early age, but as the years progressed, yes, Warren Jeffs rose in influence and power, and his father propped him up. Because again, Lucifer, I believe, propped him up.
Yeah, I'm with you on I have come to realize that and so many people are really weird about this, and I don't understand like completely why, but if you believe in God, as above, so below. There is a hierarchy of things above us, like angels and God and good things, and there's a hierarchy of things below us. And they use everything they can here because they are the rulers of this world because they were cast out, right? And so,
Yeah.
yep, I truly believe that. And I know a lot of people, it's controversial, but I don't care.
It shouldn't be. It stands to reason. If
Yeah,
there's
it's,
good power,
yeah,
there's an opposite power.
exactly. So many people believe in God. In fact, this happened to me at work the other day, and I said something about demons, and the guy, he's LDS, very active, mainstream. He said, "There's no such thing as demons," and I'm like, "Uh, really? Why would you say that?" And he's like, "Because there's not." And I'm like, "Okay, do you read the Bible or like?"
Or the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. And he said to me, the Bible's more of a reference anyway. And I was like, "Do you know that King Solomon used demons to help build his temple?" And he's like, "You're crazy."
He
So,
doesn't understand his own religion then.
yeah, exactly. I'm like, "You don't know your theology very well, but that's okay." I just stopped talking. I was like, "Okay."
Sometimes
But
that's the best thing to do.
yeah, you can't cure everything, you know? You just gotta say, "Okay, yeah, you're right." So when you were young and then going into your teenage years, um, like at what point was Warren Jeffs like the prophet then by the time you're getting like a teenager or
No, Warren Jeffs was the principal of the private school called Alta Academy that I went to, that my family went to.
okay.
The people in Salt Lake and the Sandy area went to Alta Academy,
Okay.
first through 12th grade, and Warren Jeffs was the principal. And again, we all grew to respect and admire him. Well, not all of us, because some people did get an insight, because he was abusing some people in secret, and those people were ones that he knew if they came out and told the truth, everybody would think, they're the black sheep. They can't be
Oh,
trusted. So he
right.
was
I understand that one, right?
very wise and very
Yeah.
crafty in his sins
Mhm.
and his immorality.
That's not
His
good at
own,
all.
his own sisters, his own daughters. Uh,
Mm,
anyway, it's all coming out, and he actually
right.
confessed to it in
Mm,
prison. He confessed to it, but obviously it was banned, and the people under him and serving him weren't allowed to see it, and they were told if anything said negative about him, it's a lie. Anyway, the
right.
craftiness of the devil to avoid the
Because
truth.
he still very much from what I can know, he still very much runs that sect still from prison. I mean, I know he can't do it like absolutely himself, but he still calls shots, right?
Yes, that's right. He told everybody he wasn't the prophet, and he confessed his sins about his immorality with sister and daughter and so forth. And then a few days later, the other leaders convinced him
Oh
that he was
boy.
still the prophet, and he, you know what, it feels pretty good to be the prophet, and yeah,
Right.
we probably
I
better
bet
not.
it does. Yeah. He probably also didn't want like the repercussions from that, because I mean,
Exactly.
yeah. And so
So
growing up in that school and everything, you had a good experience for you. I know there was some that are coming out now, but for you, it was still pretty normal, right? Like,
it was wonderful, an excellent education. Warren Jeffs is very intelligent, and he did a very good
right.
job teaching religion and theology and
Yes.
mathematics, chemistry, geography, you name it. A very, very
Right.
intelligent man. And went through school, graduated, valedictorian of my class,
Oh, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
and very, very blessed. When
Yes.
I graduated, I became a teacher in Alta Academy. I taught the 6th grade.
Oh,
Then went to work for my father after teaching for a year, went to work for my father in the construction industry. And after a couple of years, in 1998, as an elder of the church, I schedule an appointment. We would meet with Rulon Jeffs every month to check in and so forth, just typical.
see how you're doing and if you're doing well in your things, right?
Yeah, and I checked in with him, and it's all described in the book pretty well, but essentially, God is how I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
I got this feeling, not from me,
Mm-hmm.
that I
Yes.
was going to marry Sharon Jeffs, which is
Okay.
Warren Jeffs' brother's daughter.
Okay. So definitely you would have some inside knowledge on all of these things, because you obviously were in the family. And how old were you about this point?
I was 21 and
Okay.
she was 19. Anyway, that night I got a call from Rulon Jeffs saying, I'd like to place my granddaughter Sharon by your side. How do you feel about that? And I was just in awe, shock, and uh, anyway, I had
Because
never.
you felt you already liked her, right? You
No.
already,
Oh, I
no?
was a very, in all honesty, I was a very morally clean young man. I had never touched girls inappropriately.
Right,
I
right.
had never done
Well, that's a
anything like
big
that.
thing in that culture. That's just not done. And
That's
so,
right.
but I mean, she caught your eye maybe or something. And then God also brought that feeling to you, maybe she would, or maybe the feeling just came. Maybe it wasn't even,
Just the feeling, just the feeling. I had no inappropriate thoughts towards her. I
right.
knew she was
Mm,
pretty.
that's what I assumed. Yeah. I didn't,
Yeah,
I didn't assume anything further than that because you guys are usually very chaste upbringing, you know. And so I know most people don't even go there until they're married,
yeah.
really,
I
and
made it an effort to control my thoughts
yes,
and to
which we
not
all have
think.
to work on.
Yeah,
That's a hard job, right?
that's right.
Ugh, it can get overwhelming. But I do like to bring up how old you guys were and that you were going to school. Like you guys just aren't out on some prairie land doing nothing. Like they're raising you guys up, they're sending you to schools, they're teaching you things. This is not some backwoods. I mean, I haven't been in the culture itself, but I've seen a lot of people and worked with a lot of people. They're extremely smart. They're very educated. I think people give your people a raw deal, kind of. So that's another thing I kind of like to bring out,
It's very easy to look down on people you don't understand.
right? Because it's intimidating, probably. That's my
Yeah,
assumption.
it's human nature to look
Hmm.
down on and criticize and want to think less of somebody who isn't like you.
Well, and it's kind of an amazing thing. Like you look at the Amish and they're very similar. Like you have to understand, like people have to understand. I understand this because I'm from Utah, but some people might not. They have their own everything. They have their own doctors, they have their own police, they have their own, like you guys are a self-sustaining place and you get your own food and like all these things that are we're so dependent on. I think that's very intimidating for regular people. Like you could probably go build a house tomorrow. I wouldn't know how, you know.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
very well taught, very blessed,
Yes.
and the things that really matter.
Yep. And well-rounded. Like, I mean, you were still a teacher too, but you could build a house also. Like, and I'm sure you help grow food. Like, it's not just one
Right.
thing. And so I think that's actually really important. I think we've
So
lost a
do
lot
I.
of that. Yeah. That
So do I.
community is way more important than people realize. Like, if I could give up everything tomorrow and go somewhere and like not away from my mom and stuff, but like be self-sustaining in a community, I don't know that I'd turn it down,
You and me
especially in
both.
this day. Yeah, this day and age, I'm about ready. I'm
I'm,
like, let's
amen.
go. Yeah,
Amen. I miss a lot
it's
of things from my childhood.
right, because you probably got the time to really know the Lord because you were actually given time to study and do these things that's encouraged, you
That was
know.
part of life. That was part of life.
And
Yeah.
your bride wasn't 12, you know. These are the
19.
things that people think in their brains, and I'm like, that's not how it is with every family. This is so
Not,
silly.
not at all.
Yeah,
But it eventually became more and more present.
yeah, right. And I know because of the situation, which we'll talk about, of that going downhill. So then you were blessed and able to get married, and that happens pretty rapidly after the talk, doesn't it? Or does it?
Yes, he called me around noon and we got married at 7 o'clock that evening.
Oh my gosh, that is more fast than I thought. Wow. I bet you were a little shocked.
It was
Ah,
traumatizing, but again, it was life.
right.
And me being as naive and innocent as I
Yes.
was, I didn't even know fully how babies were made.
Right. You're like, okay, I'm in it, but I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I went to my
I'm gonna
dad
do it. Yeah. Oh,
after we were
that's
married. I went to my dad and I asked him if he could give me some advice because I was very
yeah.
naive. And apparently he didn't understand how naive I was because he just told
It'll
me,
come to you.
well, he said, there are some very powerful forces with a man and a woman.
Hmm.
Make sure you keep the Spirit of God in all you do.
Right. That's good advice for today too. I
It is, it
I
is.
yeah, that's
It sure did
actually
help me understand the birds and the bees.
right. Right. Yeah, you're probably like, wait, what does that mean?
Uh,
And so
again,
but you figured it out because you were blessed and you had some children from that
that's right.
marriage.
And
And
oh, I was so thankful that it went about that way. I don't know how to describe this, especially nowadays to the society we live in where everybody's so loose sexually and
oh, and everybody knows everything. Even if they're not loose, they're
it's forced there.
almost bombarded, you know. You're
That's
just
right.
yeah, everything's coming at you all the time. I don't know that kids even get a chance to be even if you protect them, you send them to school or whatever, you know. It's just
It's
hard.
everywhere, force fed, and it's so tragic because the special experience I had, never having done that or even come close to doing
Right.
with any other human being.
No.
Oh, I cannot describe the sacredness and the specialness of that experience.
I think that's lost nowadays. That's sad.
It
Yeah.
is tragic.
Yeah, because there is some powerful that obviously was so powerful it creates life.
That's
It
right.
literally creates life. And
That's
that's
right.
like I think that's just lost on people now. I
Yeah,
don't know. It's
we've
not just a fun
minimized.
activity. Yeah. It's not
Yeah,
going bowling. Yeah. I don't
we
know. People
minimize the sacredness and the importance of sexual relations, and it's tragic.
absolutely. I 100% agree on that one. It takes a lot away, and I think it gives a lot of people to like weird ideals of how people should be, and that leads to divorce because I mean, if you're not this way or that
Destruction of
way or
society.
yeah, yeah, it just gets
That's right.
weird. And it's not a good way. Like we've gone further in the world in a lot of ways, but not all of them are good. So
The world grows weaker and wiser.
Truth. So then you guys were married for about how long then?
Let's see, we got married in 98, and in 2004, I was called on this church mission to redeem Zion. I was called down into Texas to help build the homes, the log cabins, the temple, things down there. And while I was there for almost a year, I started noticing a lot of strange things, just contradictions and things, which I just, because I was an honest human being and open,
Right.
and I had a very close relationship with Warren Jeffs, I would just
Right.
walk up to him and say, I have some questions. Things are a little confusing. There's a contradiction here. Can you help me understand this? Or can I even talk to you about some things I need to talk to you about some things? And he saw some questions, and I've come to realize I know I was doing it in humility. I was doing it in righteousness, wanting to understand. I know
You
that.
meant no harm, right?
Exactly. But looking back on it and realizing the way he treated me so horribly after I even said, hey, can I please talk with you about these things?
Oh
He
no.
knew I would not support him in what he was doing.
He
And so
saw
he
that
had to,
you were gonna stand up. That
on
you
principle, not
mm-hmm.
just on his lustful desires.
Yes.
And he was forcing it on other people and making other people get involved through, obedience to God, the deception.
Right.
So he had to find a way to make me look bad and to try to make me
You're the bad guy now. You're
yeah,
a bad guy. And
that's
just
right.
because you asked very few questions, like it
That's right.
wasn't even a lot probably, and he already was on to you, I guess,
That's right.
in a way.
He started accusing me of having doubts and fears, which, oh, believe me, it became that because he started threatening
Right.
to take our families away. And his words were, you will lose everything.
Oh
Threats like
no.
that. And
And
my
so
family
in
was,
were they with you, your family,
no,
your kid? No, okay.
no. I was alone working in Texas, and they were, 22 hours away in Hilldale. And so he had full control. I didn't have my own phone. I didn't have my own vehicle. He
Right.
had full
They own
control.
everything. Yeah.
That's
That's
right.
one thing about living in Colorado City or Hilldale or whatnot, is ultimately, even if you build a house or whatever, they own the land, so they
Right.
own the houses. And I don't know about the cars even, like, isn't
No, not
everything
the
kind
cars.
of, no,
Some
not
of
the
the cars,
cars.
but mostly not the cars. My
Okay.
family had a van that we owned in Hilldale,
Hmm.
but I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have
You're
my
out
own.
there. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
a very,
construction, yeah.
very masterfully arranged things to where his influence was the most powerful voice. And anyway, so one day, just out of the blue, he sends a notice to the bishop saying, Isaac Steed, or rather, the Lord has judged Isaac Steed, and he is no longer worthy to live on this land.
Oh no.
He
And
does
they
not
can
want
do that. They can do that. They can take away your children, your wife,
Oh, there was
and
nothing I could do about it.
they
I,
can give them to another man, right?
that's right.
In
Oh,
that. Yep.
that's exactly right. I tried to call my wife, and it wouldn't go through. They had already moved her and
Oh my
hidden her away.
gosh.
So yeah.
So you
So
had no ability to contact her, contact your kids, even get back there because you're in this car or truck or whatever from, where you were working. And so what do you do
well,
at
he
that
told
point?
me I needed to drive to Short Creek and check in with the bishop in Short Creek, which is Hilldale in Colorado City. So
Hmm.
I drove the truck straight through the night, arrived at about 4 a.m, and my house was vacant.
Oh
And
no.
my family was somewhere else. I talked to the bishop when they woke up in the morning, and he said, go to Mesquite, Nevada, and get a job. Again, I'm in confusion and
Well, you're
oh,
probably trying to do whatever you can to
that's right.
rectify whatever, because this is your parents, this is your siblings, this is your family, this is your kids, your wife, your house, your everything, literally everything.
Physically and spiritually.
Right, right.
Uh,
Yep.
my eternal existence was on the line.
Because if you don't, so for people that don't know, if you're in the FLDS movement and you are not accepted in it anymore, I mean, there's shunning. You're not going to go to heaven. I mean, you can explain this better than I, but kind of let them know what happens to people.
You're the worst of all humanity. If you're given the most light, the most knowledge, and the most training towards godliness and goodness, and you fall from that, you become as a Lucifer, as a devil, a son of perdition. You become the worst of the worst. So me, in my confusion and trying to understand what's going on, because I had no idea of Warren
Right.
Jeff's sins, of his immorality, anything like that. All I knew was, well,
And
was
this
all
is
I
your
knew.
family. Well, this is your family
Right.
too. He's your family.
That's right.
So, and someone you felt close to and could trust
That's right.
and loved. Yeah. And I mean, he was your principal. It's not just family. This is like an encapsulation for people like you,
Yeah,
and
people.
I can't even imagine the feeling coming home into that home that night. That's like Job. You were like Job, literally. You lost everything right then,
I don't want to compare myself to him, but it was very, very traumatic and confusing. And I was
right,
reaching with my whole soul to understand and to get back in the good graces of God,
right.
so that I could somehow gain my salvation. Again, people who aren't part of a religion or don't study the Bible, things, they're not going to understand a lot of what I'm talking
Right.
about. It's easy to look at this and say, man, what some kooks. These guys
Right.
are
Or
crazy.
why didn't he just leave before? Or why didn't you just do
Yeah,
this or that? But I even in mainstream Mormonism, which wasn't attached to my house, or my husband wouldn't be taken away or whatever, even leaving for me was horribly hard. Horribly hard. My family shunned me. When you're an apostate, it isn't, people throw that word around and they're like, and you weren't an apostate. I mean, you were deemed one, but like
yeah,
you weren't denying that he was the prophet. You were still trying to do all the things correctly,
that's correct. I had committed
and
no wrong. I had committed no crime
right.
except dared get confused.
And ask a question.
Yeah,
And you probably felt very safe to, like I said, because that was your, like, you grew up with him your whole life. It'd be like talking to your dad almost. I mean, I know he's not your dad, but I mean,
I
some
considered that to be part of being a good man, was to ask questions when you didn't understand and to stand up for what's right,
right,
no matter who
right.
was doing wrong. And he knew that.
I don't know.
He
So
knew.
maybe you were targeted before the questions. I feel like maybe.
I
Um,
believe I was targeted right when the questions started arising, because he considered my loyalty to be implicit, which it was. But
mhm.
then when he realized the things he was doing weren't aligning with the principles of righteousness, and that I was trying to align myself with the principles of righteousness, and that I wasn't going to follow along with that, he had to make an enemy of me. He had to
And
make me.
he made an example of you
That's
as
right.
well,
That's
which
right.
is, and many people may not know this, but in the FLDS religion, your whole family literally can be given to another man like very quickly, like as quick as you were married, it can happen again,
Tragically, that's how it became. It didn't used to be like that, but when Warren Jeffs took over, it was just, oh, it was uh, so many
Absolute
confusing.
power. Yep.
Yeah,
Back
that's
to
right.
that. Yep.
That's right.
And like you said, you didn't even commit a transgression. You weren't saying, I don't believe in you. I don't, whatever. That wasn't it. So I mean, they do this sometimes to people, and it's just unreal, the things we
It's
go through.
despicable. It's
Yeah,
despicable.
but for you, like you were saying, people don't understand, like, okay, well, so what? Move on with your life. No, this is like everything you've ever known. And your
That's right.
family too, your parents, you know. I mean,
Physically
where do you
and
go?
spiritually. That's
Yeah, where
right.
do you go when you feel like the whole world, I mean, I don't even know how, what, you know.
Eternally, the whole world eternally has collapsed on you, and
Mm,
you are in danger and damned to hell as
yep,
is, and trying to understand, not knowing of anything that I had done wrong,
right.
and and trying to figure that out and get right, and having day after day, week after week, month after month go by, just trying to do my best to figure things out, which were
And
unfigureoutable.
get in his graces again. And how long did that go on for? Did
Years.
you didn't know where your wife was? You didn't know, you never knew anything.
Well, well, again, people won't comprehend this unless they're spiritual. But
I
I
understand.
I had a dream exactly 100 days after I was sent away on November 30th, 2004. I was sent away. Exactly 100 days. I had a dream that my family had been assigned to other men,
Oh,
and
and
so
that's
I knew.
heartbreaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I knew, and I made a phone call and confirmed it that it had happened that night. And so again, just the dominoes falling one after another, my life just being ripped apart. Now
Right.
I get emotional talking about it, but
I would too. That was it. That is it. I mean, I can't imagine the feelings you felt then because you still believed and you were still hoping at that point, you know, that you were working to get back to where you needed to be, you know.
that's
And
right. I had a 5-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old son, and a 1-year-old son.
oh wow, just babies. Oh my gosh. So,
And
and then how long did that go on until you saw them again?
oh,
Your family.
it was about 6 or 7 years
Wow.
when somebody, a friend of mine, came to me and notified me of the raid that had happened in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I figured they were there because of the dream I had had,
Right.
and said that he had read my children's names on the list of the children that had been taken away and the state had custody over.
Oh no.
So I went online and looked up the El Dorado Times and looked up the information, and it read, if the biological parents don't claim their children within 14 days, they're going to become wards of the state.
Oh my gosh.
So I immediately went to my employer, told him what was up, and hightailed it down to Texas.
Boy, I
I
bet you
showed
went
up.
fast.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
can't even imagine.
I
Yeah.
showed up with birth certificates, social security cards, pictures, everything that anybody can ever have to document
A
uh,
child.
a
Thank
child.
goodness you had that because a lot of
That's
times they
right.
don't have those,
That's
right?
right.
Most of the
Well,
time.
that's one thing I made sure I did. When I got
Oh,
sent
thank
back, I went
heavens.
and got copies of those things so that I did have them in my possession.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But
Because
I went down.
sometimes you don't. Yeah.
I went down there and into the courthouse, and they told me, "Well, go get a lawyer. I don't want to talk
Mm.
to you until you get a lawyer." So I'm okay. So I went and got a lawyer. Went back and I said, "I'm the father of these 3 children," and they said, "Prove it." And I said, "Well, look, here's the birth certificates. I'm their father. This is my son. This is my daughter. This is my son. Here are pictures. Here are social security cards." And they looked me dead in the eye and they said, "We think these are counterfeit."
Oh my gosh.
I said, "Well,
Okay.
if I could make a counterfeit like this, I'd be pretty amazing. But you tell
You'd
me
be rich.
if
Yeah.
this is if this is counterfeit, how in the world am I supposed to prove to you that I am their father?" And they said, "We want a DNA sample." And I said, "Take it."
Yeah, do it. Whatever
So
you got to do.
they took a DNA sample and then uh, told me they'd get back with me within 7 to 14 days. So, man, the waiting game was torture. But I went back to work, and after 7 days, I called them and they wouldn't answer. I called my lawyers, had them call, and they wouldn't respond to my lawyers.
Wow.
14 days went by. They wouldn't answer our phone calls. They wouldn't respond to messages. 42 days
Oh my gosh.
went by. And finally, I get a call from a CPS representative, a child care advocate. And they said, hey, we found out the DNA, you are their
And they're your
father.
kids. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I said,
You're
well,
like,
how long did it take you to find that out? Oh, 7 days. We knew after 7 days. I'm like, well, why in the world didn't you call me? I said, well, because we thought you were still part of the FLDS church, so we didn't want to give you the kids.
oh my gosh. And so you're just waiting.
Told me that they figured I was still part of the FLDS church, so they didn't want to give me my kids. And that they had read in one of the revelations of Warren Jeffs before I was sent away, that Warren Jeffs said I was to become the next prophet of the FLDS church.
Wow.
So that alarmed them, obviously.
I bet that alarmed you, to be honest.
Oh,
After
made
you
me
went through
laugh.
all that. Yeah.
It made me, well, again, I was very respected, and I was a very good man.
Right. Yeah, you still are. Yeah.
Well, anyway, so when I heard that, it was shocking, but I said, I gave you guys all my phone contacts. I gave you guys everything. You wouldn't believe anything I told you. And they apologized, but now it was too late because they said the FLDS had won the court case and the kids were to be given back to their mothers.
Oh no.
Yeah, but they did allow me to come see my children for about an hour and a half. So
and there was nothing they could do to help you get father's rights at that point, knowing what they knew.
That's right. Because
that is ridiculous.
The children were to be given back to the mothers.
That's ridiculous.
Amen.
Knowing what they knew, knowing you would be a safe option, knowing that they would be safer with you, they still did that.
Well, they still had their doubts, I came to find out, even after all this. They told me I could come see my children. So I went down to Texas again. I walked in the room, and now my 9-year-old daughter,
wow,
my 7-year-old boy, and my 5-year-old boy, my 9-year-old daughter recognized me. And anyway, just emotional, but
crying. Yeah. But the little one probably
didn't recognize me at all.
Remember. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh my gosh.
But my 9-year-old and the 7-year-old did remember me. And the 9-year-old says to me, Father, we haven't seen you in so long.
Oh.
Which showed me they weren't being told negative things about me, which was very encouraging.
But anyway, just that you were gone. Yeah.
Yeah, they just figured I was gone, and they knew they had a different father.
Right. Yeah, that's so confusing.
Messed up. Kids' minds to have to go through. So I got to see him for an hour and a half, and I enjoyed it very, very much. It was the first time I had seen him in years.
I'm sure you were, overjoyed.
I was weeping, but still trying to maintain composure to spend some good time with them.
Yeah. Yes.
So after that hour and a half, then they say, well, the court's ruled they have to go back to their parents, so back to their mothers. So see ya.
Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you.
I can't imagine.
So many things happened there that made me understand very well how easy it is for a human to go postal.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah. To just,
because you've lost everything, and now here it is right in your hands, and they're gonna take it from you again.
Just that nihilistic view and the anger, the hurt. Anyway.
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
So I went back to work. They went back to getting passed around all around Texas, getting hidden from the law, you name it. And I didn't see them again for another, it's probably 7 years.
Wow. I actually didn't know you hadn't seen him for that long. I had seen him at the wedding, They were there, I think, at the wedding or shortly after. I got to meet them. Maybe it was after. I can't remember, but I met them once, just
Well,
once.
that was after
Okay.
when I met Stacy.
Which is my sister, everyone. Me and
That's right.
Isaac are family. So yes. And
I met
then
Stacy. I had given up on, well, reality. It hit me in the head so hard I
yeah,
couldn't deny it. I was never going to get my family back.
no.
And so I filed divorce papers.
Yeah. What else can you do?
Yeah. And got with your sister, Stacy. We
Yeah.
developed a relationship. And then I realized I had started learning more about the realities of what had been going on, the truth about Warren Jeff's immorality and his lies and the things he was doing behind the scenes. And then it all started making sense, why everything was so confusing, why
Mm-hmm.
everything happened the way it did. Anyway, so I filed I used my same lawyers to get custody of my kids, and I got custody of my kids
Way
after
to
a
go.
long court battle.
Yes. Amazing. Good.
But it was short-lived because the FLDS, when I got custody, the FLDS told my children, who are now,
Mm-hmm.
they're 16, 14, and 12,
Mm-hmm.
told them to, quote, cause as many problems for me as they could.
And they also shun, like they don't like
Now I could tell,
outsiders. Yeah.
and they were turned against me. They told me I wasn't their father.
Mm.
Anyway, they were just filled with hate, filled with hate.
Oh no.
So they lived in my home for about a week and a half, and they were stealing things. My oldest daughter, I should say. Thankfully, my younger sons didn't dare. They knew it was so wrong. They weren't going to do that to me.
Yeah.
But the oldest one, living her principles of righteousness and loyalty to the church, she was stealing our clothes and putting them in the dumpster, and we couldn't
Oh
find them.
no.
It was ridiculous, doing everything she could to cause problems for us. They were
Mm-hmm.
disobedient. They refused to do anything to help out. Just causing a lot of problems. And so
Right.
I had to go back to work. So Stacy, your sister, is home
Mm-hmm.
with her 3 kids and my 3 kids.
And this is all going on.
And this
Yeah.
is all going on without me there, which is
Right.
very
It's hard.
difficult for her. So she called me up. She said, I can't do this.
Right. Right.
You can't expect me to go through this. So
Mm-hmm.
I came home and I just told my 3 kids, I said, I have the ability and the power to put you guys through military school, to demand you guys shape up and learn the reality of what's going on here, to learn the truth about Warren Jeffs, about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I said, but I can tell you've been so brainwashed. You've been filled with so much hate and fear. You would fight that, and it would only make you more bitter and more hateful. I said, so I'm just going to tell you that I love you. I'm always here for you. I'm going to let you go back there, but I want you to remember that the truth is a lot different than what you think it is. And when you
Mm-hmm.
want to know the truth, you're welcome to call me.
Yeah. So that they always know you're there. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you can't fight against it. I mean, I've lost my daughter to a
Right.
separate such situation where it's powerless. I mean, you can scream and yell and have a fit and cry and bawl and beg and sometimes if they have something in their mind because it was put there by someone else,
No matter what you do,
yeah, it's
only
so
makes them
hard.
feel.
Yep. And then also I'm sure it was a culture shock for them, being
That's right.
outside away from everyone,
Wearing
like you
prairie
said.
dresses and long sleeves. Yep, that's right.
Mhm. I remember meeting them and they were really not happy to be there, and
Yeah.
I understood. I didn't take offense because I knew they had been taken out of what they knew, but I also knew you were trying to do the best thing for them. Such a hard
Yeah.
line. It's so
Difficult
hard.
circumstance.
Yeah.
Well, they
And then
went back.
the mom too. Yeah.
Oh, and
This-
their mom was lying to them and telling, anyway, she was doing what she was told by the church leaders. It's funny
right.
because the lies and the stealing and the vandalism and everything was okay if they were doing it to me.
Bleeding the beast, right? Bleeding the
Yeah.
beast. Yes.
Oh man, it was
Which people don't
ridiculous.
understand. Maybe we should tell people what that is. It's like you can, as far as what I know is in the FLDS, like anybody that isn't in their community, it's okay to do certain things because those people are damned, like,
Much
I
like
don't
the
know.
Muslims, much like the
Yes.
Muslims.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it didn't used to be that way. When I
Right.
was part of the FLDS, it wasn't that way. We were told, I mean, what does the character of God say in the Bible? It says God cannot lie.
Right. Right.
That doesn't mean
Yep.
he can lie to bad people.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Jesus hung with the sinners, but he didn't become one, right?
He never lied. He can't lie or
Nope.
he would cease to be God. But
Yes.
these Muslims and the FLDS and these people who get a demented, well,
Yeah.
it's the
It's
Luciferian
brainwashing.
doctrine. It's
Yes,
Luciferian.
it is. That
Yeah.
I 100% agree. And it isn't just in the FLDS movement. I feel like, and I don't know how you feel on this, but for me, what I've studied, I feel like it's in Mormonism as well, but not just Mormonism. I don't believe in any religion anymore. I believe in God and I believe in the Bible and Jesus Christ is my savior and two or more in his name is church. And that's where I'm at. Not that I wouldn't go to a church to praise God or be with people, but I will never belong to another one. I
And
won't.
that's tragic because humanity has corrupted churches so greatly
Yeah.
that the
Yes.
people like this naturally go to that mindset and those viewpoints. But just to kind of play devil's advocate or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
religion and church and organized people together in a big group striving towards one goal, unity, is so
Yes.
critical, so critical.
I miss the unity part, but I feel like it's all like what you said at the first, it's corrupt. Like I can't find my people. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm
The
looking.
FLDS
Yeah.
church, again, they have become a religion of hate and fear and evil and sin and immorality and pedophilia and you name it.
Yes. Yep.
They've become what used to be, and I'll put my life behind this. The best people I've ever met, the best people I've
Right.
ever lived around were those people.
And I think it's leaked into mainstream. I feel
And
like more and more I see it. And you know what it says in the Bible in Revelations 2 about the coming of the Antichrist will be ushered in by the church. And I know that's true. And it's not, none of us want to be on an island alone on misfit toys. Like I've got people here and there, but it's like I also don't want to be corrupted in my soul. Like it's hard.
we all have to be so careful.
We,
Yes. Oh, we
so
need humility. Humility
yep.
is key.
I think you just have to really get in the word and people don't want to. Like I was telling you before we got on about a story and I'm like, yeah, and they didn't know this and they didn't know that. They don't know their own Bible. They don't know their own Book of Mormon. They don't know their books. They don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like I study this 4 to 6 hours a day. Some
Yeah.
days. I
Well,
mean,
it's
because
like
I
it's
want
like
to know.
Catholicism in the Dark Ages. Only the priests could read the
Yep.
book.
Yep.
The FLDS has become that, where righteousness is now no longer what's in the book, it's what the leaders say, even though it
Right.
contradicts everything in the book. And the Mormons, sad to say, they've stopped teaching so many of their own principles and
Well,
doctrines.
they've cut that Book of Mormon to pieces. I mean,
Because
it's in
again,
shambles.
it's not
Yeah.
convenient for the leaders to, and for the way the world is going.
Yeah.
It's
The,
hard to maintain a righteous membership when the world is just bombarding everybody with evil. It's sad. In order to keep members, they're compromising principles of
yes.
righteousness.
It's the truth. And not only that, but their leaders are corrupt. Their leaders are corrupt. And just like, what you say, like the president of the Mormon church right now is a Skull and Bones member. He's a doctor, and I know that because I read it in his biography.
I didn't
His
know that.
words, his words, his writing, his stuff. And I'm like, what is going on? You just step back and go, is everything you love or believe a lie? Like some days it feels that way,
That's the
you
danger,
know?
and that's the tragedy that so many people, again, the nihilistic feeling I was talking about.
Yep.
It's so easy to go that route
Yep.
when contradictions hit and you realize you've been betrayed, you realize you've been lied to, you realize a lot of what you believed is so opposite and different from what you believed it is. It's a
It's
natural
it's
tendency to go
wild.
down that
And
nihilistic
and
viewpoint.
many people actually become atheists. And I'm so grateful that that didn't happen. I went
Amen.
completely the other way. I was like, God, I'm right here. Show me what I'm supposed to know because I'm confused, and thank heavens he did because I,
Humility and honesty and searching for truth, even if it's hard. And
yeah,
that's finding out you've been deceived in so many things. There's a tendency to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
yes, of course. Yep.
We need to
I
hang on
agree.
to what's good. We need to hang on to what we know is good and
Yes.
sift through it intelligently, set aside
Hmm.
slowly, quickly, however, whatever we can do to not throw away the good with the bad.
Yes. And I think you just really have to be protective and wise. Like I don't worry about like my kids playing with Mormon people or whatever. Like some people are funny about stuff like that after they get out. I'm not like that. I judge every person on that person, period. Because if you do it any other way, you're just going to be lost. And I mean judge on if I would be their friend, not judge them because we shouldn't, you know. And
That's right.
that's what
There
I've
is so
done.
much, there's so much good in every religion.
Yes.
And again, though, there's so much bad too. We've all got to be vigilant and cautious.
Just like you said, Warren Jeffs, was everything to you. You thought he was this really good person, and I think maybe he was at one point,
Oh,
maybe.
and he had multiple personalities, Heidi. Uh,
Wow.
He was this really good person in front of me and in front of everybody. He really was.
Hmm.
But
Right.
then he would change, get possessed, whatever you want to call it,
I
and
I I believe in stuff like that. Yeah.
do his evil things. And then he was able to just turn that off. That wasn't him, so he didn't do it.
Right.
His
Right. And
daughter,
maybe in his heart he really didn't, in his mind, what I'm saying? Like
you study psychology, and that's a real
it
multiple
is.
personalities. It's a
It
disorder, it's a
absolutely
mental
is.
illness, but it's real.
Yes, it is very real. What were you going to say about his daughter?
His daughter testified of that, telling some stories about what she went through, and she told how he would do immoral things to her. And when she got older and he did the immoral things to her, she said, "Father, stop doing that to me." And
Hmm.
he turned to her and reprimanded her severely. "How
Mm.
dare you accuse me of doing that to you? I did not do that." And she's like,
Well,
"What?"
yeah, it's right then and happening. Yeah.
So he had has some serious mental issues.
Hmm. And he's still leading these people. I mean, at the last I heard, and I don't know for sure, but like their marriages are not the same. The kids can't have toys. Like these put all these really weird restrictions on them. I don't know, maybe more to that, than I do, but
Oh, it's a mess. It's a mess. Just sad to say I've still got family members that are part of
yeah.
that won't talk to me, and they're just filled with hate, filled with fear.
Mm.
They don't dare talk to me because I'm a master
You're
deceiver.
scary. You're scary
Yep.
now. Yeah.
Yep.
Jeez. Oh, that's so hard. And how long did you go without seeing your parents as well?
Oh, well, kind of complicated, but my dad had been sent away, kicked out just
Mm-hmm.
previous to when I was kicked out. So when I was kicked out,
So
I
hard.
got I got with my dad. We moved to Mesquite together.
Okay.
So we began
So you
working
had at
together.
least one person, thank
Oh, I
heavens.
had my dad and my brother, an older brother. All
Okay.
three of us were kicked out, had our families
Uh,
taken from us, the whole 9 yards.
he was probably threatened. If he got that revelation, say from another, um, he was in another identity or whatever when he wrote that, and then he read it later and really may have scared him,
Oh,
about your family.
it's funny because he talks, and I've read a bunch of his journal writings, and he said, all my revelations are correct except the ones given in October of 2004.
That must have been when that was, huh? You're
Yep.
like, oh boy. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So was your dad or brother ever able to reunite with their children or their wives or?
My dad is now with my mom,
Oh, good. Okay.
thankfully. My
Yeah.
brother was never able to reunite with his family, but he's remarried and he has 2 children in North Dakota with him
But
right now.
not to see his kids ever again.
No,
Oh
no.
my gosh. And have you ever heard from your children again?
My 2 sons have regular contact with me now.
Oh, good.
They have left the FLDS church on their own willingly, and they have
Amazing.
contact with me, but my daughter is still in there and she won't have contact with any of us.
No, because but God is good and brought your sons out, and that's wonderful. I'm so
Amen.
grateful for that. So you get to see them now and
I
everything. How old
do.
are they grown up now or
Oh, yeah,
grown
yeah.
up?
20, let's see, 22 and 20.
Okay, so they're on their own and having their own lives. So, but that's wonderful that you get to be a part of their lives because I mean
Yeah.
that's just such a robbery.
Oh, it is. And they have a lot to learn and overcome because of the things they've been through. They've been severely traumatized.
Oh, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I mean, but God is good and he can help. It takes time, but I
I,
believe that they'll be healed, you
I
know.
know. I know they will. That's right.
Yes, yes. So is there anything else about this situation that you want to tell people about, like, I guess misconceptions or different things about your story or anything else like that? I
Well,
have a couple questions after.
I would just tell people you never know the background or what somebody is going through. Nobody.
Absolutely.
And
100.
it behooves us all to just be so loving and kind and understanding and non-judgmental. And then with that, the big picture, never allow yourself, this is talking to myself, I
Yeah,
will never allow myself to the best of my ability to get into a position like that again where one person or a group of people have total control over everything in my life.
absolutely. That's a scary position to be in, you
Yeah.
know. And now you're your own man, and now you can stand up for the very things that you were trying to do then
And that's
and
what I was
say,
going to say
yeah,
next is if we see something wrong, it's so easy just to look at everybody around us and say, you know what, I'm going to be an outcast if I speak up and tell people what I'm thinking right now. But man, this looks weird. This is strange. We need to speak up. If if
yes.
I if I were to go back and live that
I was
again,
just gonna ask that.
I
Yes.
did my best. I really did. I did everything that I knew how to do. I
Right.
really did my best. But with the knowledge I have now, I would be standing up saying, no, this is not right.
Mm-hmm. You would
You can't.
still, you knowing you would lose it all, you would
That's
still
right.
do the right thing. Yep.
Well, I believe standing up like that, again, I would do it wisely and I'd talk to my
Yes.
family and I'd say, hey, this is what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, anyway, again, 2020 is always, hindsight's always 2020, but uh, I just would encourage
Lost
everyone
my
to
group
stand up.
color. Sorry. That should hook up 1 second. It does this sometimes, right as I'm getting into the good part. It always likes to be a little fussy. Because we were getting into what you would do again and standing up and God stuff, then my thing dies, but now I'm smart and I carry two. Because it happened to me too many times now, where I'll get to like the really good God part and something will malfunction. I got
Are
it.
you ready? Are you ready to go?
Yes. So would you do it again, knowing everything and losing everything? Stand
Oh,
up.
would I do it again? I certainly would not want to.
No.
But if similar circumstances were to happen again, I thank God for the knowledge and the understanding and the strength to be able to stand up and say, you know what, regardless of what happens to me, this is not right. You're
Right.
destroying, or whatever it is, if no
Yep.
matter what degree of oppression, stand up and say something.
Yes, I agree. Because sometimes it isn't, a lot of times people would say, well, I would just get myself out and my family or whatever, but that doesn't fix the problem.
That's right.
You've got this whole community that's being basically tortured, you know, at
That's
that
right.
point. And so I would be like you. I definitely would have been kicked out.
Yeah.
But I mean,
And there's a wise way to go about it maturely and not be, an immature
mhm.
tantrum thrower. And anyway, we have to be mature
There's a
about
good
what we
way.
do.
Uh-huh.
But
Yep.
stand up against wrong and don't just go along with things just because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding on that one. Because it just leads us down a weird road. If we stand
Well,
for nothing, we're gonna fall for everything, right?
that's
I
right.
mean,
Look what's happened to tens of thousands of people.
yeah.
People have been damaged beyond what they're going to be able to repair in one lifetime.
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
it's tragic. Again,
It's
I did my
sad.
best. I do regret so many things because I didn't know better, though. I can't just condemn
Right.
myself and hang my head all day, all the time. But
No,
I certainly have learned a lot, and I'm grateful for the
I'm
strength
sure.
that God has given me and helped me learn.
It's a blessing that you were able to reunite with who you could and have the things come together like your parents and your sons and hopefully one day your daughter and you have these other kids too and hopefully one day it'll become more unified again. That's what I hold in my heart because my daughter, it's a different thing, but it's so similar. She's indoctrinated by one person in her life and that's it, and I look at it and I think, well, what the heck are you doing? Like, because I'm such a strong personality. Like, I would never let somebody do that to me. You say that, but then I look back at my life and it's happened to me too. So,
That's right.
yeah, you don't know. You don't know until you do know, and then you just have to do what you can. I mean, but you've got these other kids, you've moved on with your life, you've survived. I'm hoping you're healing, all these things, and you're sharing your story, which is you will be shocked how many people you will help. I'm
I hope
serious.
so. I sure hope so. That was why, well, Stacy, now my ex,
Mm-hmm.
sad to say, another tragic story, but
Right.
she's the one that pushed and pushed and pushed for me to write this book. I didn't want to write this book. She pushed and pushed, and finally I agreed when I met Charlene and I saw that Charlene was going to write it in honesty and not just to
Not
sell.
to sell. Uh-huh. Yes.
So I finally agreed to have the book written, and that ended up being one of the rubs in Stacy's mind and heart. Once it was on paper, she knew my whole story. I had told her everything.
Right. Yeah.
On paper, it was different to her for whatever reason, and now she developed some
She can't.
angst and some dislikes in me for the fact that I had a pleasant relationship before her. And anyway, it's complicated,
Even
but
though she did as well. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
It's a sad thing when we all have jealousy. I have exes, my husband has exes. I see her sometimes and I think, geesh, because we're very different looking and whatnot. So you think in your mind, like, well, maybe he likes her better, blah, blah, blah. But you have to stop those thoughts and say, that's just something that's getting in your head trying to mess with your life, really. trying to mess with your happiness, you know.
It's
I
natural,
think.
but it needs overcome and it needs fought in a mature
Yes.
way. That's right. We need to
Yep.
be mature. That's what
And
it comes
talk about
down
it. Talk about it. I
to.
tell him all the time, like, hey, I feel this way because I'm taller than her, fatter than her, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is. Everybody feels less than for some reason. Let's
Yep,
be
and
honest.
it's
Yeah.
your partner's responsibility to take those insecurities
Yeah.
and as a partner, say, hey, I'm with you. I
It's
chose you.
okay.
Comfort you.
Yeah.
Yep. And soothe and, console those things. So
Mm-hmm.
I tried, and
I
oh man,
know. It's
I am not perfect by any means. Again, I have my sins,
no.
my failings, which only contributed to our problems, but we're now divorced. Stacy, who
Yeah.
in the book, it describes uh, the wonderful life that we began, the children that the two children that Stacy and I had, beautiful, intelligent, wonderful children. Uh, and again, it's another story, another podcast or whatever, or 10.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's okay. That's what this is for. It's a platform for people because you'll be shocked. When I first started this, I thought, nobody is going to want to listen to this. It's so much stuff because I've suffered in different ways. But I'm like, how do you put this all in one thing and tell people and blah, 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 and tell your story and how you feel? And nobody's going to care about this. I literally was like, this is stupid, you know? And somebody really encouraged me. I was on his podcast and I was breaking down a high school that had satanic stuff in it. And I was like, this is really weird. Why would they have this? And it's in Utah and it's weird. And I said, you should investigate this and do a story because I really liked him. I still do. I love him. He's a great podcaster. And he said, you need to come tell it. I'm not a Mormon and I don't live there and I don't understand any of this stuff, you know? And I said, well, no, I don't know how to do that. Like, and he's like, just come on. And I was scared and I did it. And then so many people like commented or liked it or whatever. He did another show with me and then we did another show. And he's like, maybe you ought to just do a show. He's like, people listen. And I thought, this is crazy. Nobody's going to care, you know, but they do.
Well,
And
if
so,
your labors or my labors,
yeah,
our words, our stories can help anybody, that's a
yes.
blessing. That's a success. So that's
One
what I
person.
desire.
Yep.
Yep.
Even one person, because after I lost my brother, and you knew me before that, but that's what I decided. If I can help one person not harm themselves or not think a certain way or not feel so alone or whatever, that's enough for me. That was worth it, you know. And sometimes these things resonate with people. You might be the one person that somebody hears that might be, you know, trying to get out or whatever, and maybe it will help them, you know, to see there is life on the other side, you know. And so it's hard sometimes. It's really hard, but there
Life
is
is difficult a lot of the time, and we all need as much love and help as we can get from each other.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's where my community is now. I feel like it's kind of gone that way. And I'm okay with that for now. You know, if God wants me somewhere else, he'll place me there. And I know that because he's done a lot of things where I'm like, this is wild. I'm not going to do that. And then here I am doing that. You know, it's just sometimes you say, oh, I would never do that. And then you better be careful with the nevers because you never know. But here we are, you know. So I do have a question for you. Do you still believe in the polygamy, like the origins behind it? I know it's perverted right now, and I know it got weird with the whole Warren Jeffs things, but the actual like presence of it or how, you know what I'm saying? Like the
I do. And
full, yeah,
in the book, one of the last pages describes my beliefs in polygamy and that it is a principle of righteousness of God, something that I don't feel very many people should live.
right.
Definitely not me right
It's not
now.
for everyone.
Yep.
Hmm.
But in the book, I describe how I still believed it was a principle of righteousness. And I'll say this, I'm growing and learning, and my feelings and my thoughts are continually changing. And I hope
Yeah.
that it will always be that way.
Right.
I want to always be learning. I would say it a little different now. I would say it's something my dad lived it, and I am so glad he lived it.
You saw it work.
I saw it
You saw it
lived the
in its
right way.
fullness. Mm-hmm.
Lived the right way. There were challenges. Don't get me
Well,
wrong.
for
There were
sure.
jealousies. There were struggles. There were things that you just wouldn't get in
Right.
a normal relationship. But I wouldn't have it any other way. And I
Right.
look back at Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and when God was trying to populate the earth with good people, he
Mm-hmm.
chose good, strong men and women to live that principle in
Right.
righteousness. And
It's
I
not
feel
for everyone.
my
Right.
dad is one of those. But yes, I would say definitely not something that I would say, oh, it's a good principle, so everybody needs to
Right.
live it. No, 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 no.
No. Yeah. It can't
Stay
be taken
clear
lightly.
away from it
Mhm.
unless God Himself commands it be done. And if you don't know how to get that commandment from God, don't live it.
Right, right, exactly. Because it can become really confusing and it's a lot different. I want to specify this for listeners that have no affiliation with like any kind of churches. This is not polyamory. This is not, they don't share what their wives don't come in together. These are like very separate marriages. These are like, but you come together for like holidays and the brothers and sisters and the wives help each other with the children. But it isn't some weird sexual perversion where he
Not
goes
at
to bed
all.
with 12 wives. It's not a
That's right.
thing. Yeah. So I want
Very
people to know that.
sacred. Amen. And I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Very sacred and very private and very virtuous if you can be mature enough to understand it in the proper
Right.
context. My father never did anything immoral. It was when he loved his wives and he treated them very
Right.
affectionately, but it
And
wasn't like
not in front of each other either. They,
exactly,
yep.
exactly.
They're very careful about like it isn't just something willy-nilly that you just go into. And I've seen a lot of shows, even people that they're not LDS at all. They just live polygamy. And even in their marriages where they're more open or they're more whatever, it's still that whole jealousy thing or paying more attention to one wife or whatever. And I can't imagine
I'm
how hard that would be.
I'm kind of disgusted by those kind of things because it puts a mockery and kind of a sacrilege
Yeah,
to what I
it's
witnessed my
it's
dad
yeah, it's
and
not
my
the
mom
same thing.
do. Amen.
Yeah, it's not. And I want people definitely to know, like, because I think a lot of times normal people that don't grow up in Utah understand, like, this isn't one guy just sleeping with tons of women. They have specific nights where they're with specific families, where they're with this and that. It's a very organized. I mean, it is
Well,
like
and you could say
to
it that way.
separate the feelings for the women. So it's not like I'm talking about bedroom stuff, not separated families. Just that part is, like you said, sacred. It's not,
Sacred
yeah,
is the proper word. Very sacred and very moral in that
hmm
it wasn't treated lightly or sexually or lustfully in any
right.
way whatsoever.
Yeah, it's not like some just sicko thing. Like it's not like that. It's and I've been around a lot of polygamists that I knew that lived it because I mean, I didn't grow up in that area, but I lived in that area for a long time and Cedar City and stuff, and they have a branch out there. And so, I've seen people the way they live. It's not like what people think. And not that you don't come together as a family with, like I said, the siblings and Christmas or whatever, like normal dinner, all that stuff. It's just I'm talking about bedroom activities are not what people think.
Right.
It's just weird. Yeah, they get way off track. And it is actually something that they believe in to help them actually ascend to heaven. Like it is,
Perfect their
yes.
characters
Yes. It's not just done, I believe.
and to bring forth children in righteousness.
Yeah. They don't just like say this is a great idea one day. This is
That's
not,
right. It's,
yeah,
I'll just be blunt. It's something that a normal good man would say, please
yeah,
no, unless
yeah,
I'm commanded of God.
right. And you
That was
never
the
did
way
have another wife, right? When you were, because you were still pretty young.
I did have two
Oh, you
wives.
did. Okay. I
Yeah.
didn't know. Was she, so she was taken as well, or
Yeah, they were both taken and sent to other families.
and whatever came of, did you not have children with that one, or
I did not have
okay.
children with the second
So
one.
probably still sad, but not
For
quite as
sure.
heart-wrenching. Yeah.
That's that's right.
So did you ever find out what happened with her? Or any
Oh,
resolution?
she got passed around from man to man. I don't know where she is right now, but
No
uh,
resolution really there.
yeah, that's
No,
right.
that's hard. I'm sorry. Because I know the feelings are still there. Like that's still a hard thing, even without kids, was
No
still a
matter
relationship.
if a man and a woman get married in righteousness,
Hmm.
no matter what happens after that, there's still the good
Yeah.
and the degree of
Yes.
love that never disappears. If you
No.
have any human decency in you, even with Stacy to this day,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's still that degree of love that will never disappear. Now,
No.
obviously, depending on what people do and how they behave, their actions, their rudeness, their terrible, whatever they do,
However they
there can
are.
be
Yeah.
anger, there can be hurt, there can be disgust, there can be, but if you really got married for the right reason in the first place,
There's
that
always the
love,
good.
that's
Yeah.
right,
That
that good
that
was
good part.
there,
Yep.
and
I'm like
that
that with
doesn't
my,
disappear.
yeah, my first ex-husband. He put me through the ringer, man. And actually, I don't know if you know this, but maybe I told you, but he actually left me for a polygamous gal that was already married. It
Oh
was
my
super
goodness.
scandalous. She wasn't in the Jeff's clan. Now she was outside of Cedar City in Enoch. And I don't know what clan that is, but she didn't look the same. Like she wore pants, but still long sleeves and the long hair. But she was kind of a defective, I guess, because she had a baby and then lost her uterus, and she was the youngest wife. And you know how hard that would be in her 20s. And so she felt, I think, just defective.
That's
And
sad.
so, yeah, and he wasn't nice, which has nothing to do with him being a polygamist and everything to do with him being just a not nice guy. I think that's important to tell people. And I think they just hooked up or whatever at his work, and he was really in love with her. And so they ended up together for a while, and that was kind of the end of our marriage. But I was like so angry, with
Yeah.
everything. And I guess then at the very end, my grandma said, so, but how did you feel about the polygamous thing? And I said, what? Because I didn't know. And I was still just processing this affair. And I'd only ever been with my husband because I was 17 when we got married. And he was 25, and I was just a stupid kid. And I mean, I was married to him for 10 years, but we had these kids and everything. And I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And she said, lady was the third wife. And I just sat there. I was like, this can't be real. It was so strange. I just was like, what? But
Yeah.
yeah, it was, I mean, I tell people all the time, that's not normal because the women don't usually like have more than one relationship. It's usually
That's
just
right.
yeah.
That's right.
So that was a random one, but I was like, one more thing to add to the list of things that now I have to process in my brain.
Well, some things can't be processed. They're just
Right.
messes.
It was weird, but I mean, it could have been with anyone. It still would have hurt just as much.
That's
It
right.
was it was just a surprise, I think. I was just a little shook for a minute. I was like, what did you say?
For sure. Yeah, that's another
Yeah.
crazy twist.
You never know what your life's gonna bring you, right, Isaac?
Tell me about it. Life is
Full of surprises, right? So any last thing for our listeners before we end this one?
well, to me, I don't really have a lot of wise advice. I'm not a philosopher, but stand up for what's right and help each other and do unto others as you'd have done to you. And no matter what, I guess this is something I'm learning. Everything we do, whether it's good or bad, will come back to us.
Yep, I agree 100%. And we have to be careful with our walk
That's right.
and try and be walking with the Lord, stick close to him, and you'll probably be okay, you know? And then remind the listeners one more time what your book is called and where they can find it.
Devotion, Deception, Deliverance, Isaac's Story by Charlene Paul. And you can find it on Amazon.
Amazing. And I will be posting the links in the show notes, so you guys will be able to find it. And periodically, I hope to do another show with you, and periodically we can just post that so that listeners can see it and find it as well, because I want to make sure your story gets out. Yeah, it needs to be heard. You
Thank you
betcha.
for having me on.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.